It's time to break out the rest of season rankings. If you like this video, drop a like and make sure you subscribe. We're trying to hit 40K subscribers by the end of the season. You can help us hit that goal. Let's start with the running backs here and we'll go to the S tier. We're going to start with, of course, Jonathan Taylor, who is averaging 27 points per game right now in fantasy football. He's absolutely otherworldly in fantasy football, just a complete cheat code. So you have to start every running back discussion with him. Now, the next two guys, Christian McCaffrey's averaging 24.5 points per game this year and Bijan Robinson at 21.5. Personally, we're going to keep these guys in the same tier. In my personal rankings, I have Bijan Robinson in a tier of his own just because I think I would take Taylor and McCaffrey over Bijan right now. But these are the three guys, again, that are going to have league-winning upside for you at the running back position. They're all scoring 21-plus points per game, and they're all kind of killing it right now. And so if you have one of these three guys, congratulations, because they're helping you win a fantasy football championship.
Then in the A tier, no big changes here, at least at the top. You've got your guys like Gibbs, Achane, Jacobs, who are just so consistent. I mean, they have touchdown upside any given week. They can elevate them up to 30 points anytime. They're all phenomenal. And then you got James Cook, who's bounced back from his slow run before the bye week. Saquon Barkley finally bouncing back. He's showing what he's capable of. I do think if he can kind of get over this little injury tweak that he had at the end of last game, that he should be fine rest of the season. And the big change here, I think, is just putting Javonte here in the A tier. I'm tired of shorting Javonte and putting him in a tier below all of these guys when the reality is he's just been one of the most consistent running backs in fantasy football this season. I mean, he's essentially guaranteed to get you 15-plus points every single week. Just like, I mean, he's been more consistent than James Cook this season, than Saquon this season. So again, I think he deserves to be in here. I think he's earned it. So happy to put him in the A tier.
Starting in the B tier, we'll go with Kyren Williams. Kyren is, continuing to be a low-end running back one rest of the season. Bucky Irving will be when he comes back. Hopefully he returns after the bye week. Ashton Genty, you continue to get kind of a mixed bag with Genty so far this year. We've kind of held steady with him, but they just had their bye week. We'll see what he does against Jacksonville in week 9, coming off a game in week 7 where he only had 4 points against Kansas City, but it was a tough matchup. Derrick Henry, rest of the season, running back the 13. I feel like that's pretty reasonable. He's like the running back 19 on a points per game basis right now. We're obviously projecting him to have a better rest of season than he has had the beginning of the season, but it doesn't mean that he's gonna go back to being a top 3 running back. So I don't know where we're pulling that out of based on the conversations we've had in the Flock League, but we do still project him to be very good rest of the season. I have him at 12. Nathan has him at 13. So we have him as a low-end running back one rest of the year, anywhere in this tier. And then Quinshon Judkins, obviously we're still looking for the injury status here with Judkins, right? I haven't really heard anything. He's considered day-to-day as the last thing that I see on the headlines. And so with Quinshon, just know that he's going to be a little bit more boom or bust. Yes, he's getting 20-plus carries per game, but he's getting 0 targets per game. So in the games where he doesn't score touchdowns this year, he has 4, 3, 13, and 10 points. And so you just have to know that there is a little bit of give with Quinshon Judkins' weekly production when he doesn't score a touchdown, but he is getting 20-plus carries per game, so that touchdown upside is going to be high. It's a bad offense, but he's a guy that's getting so much volume that we have to put him in this B tier.
Yeah, then we got a smaller tier, the C tier, starting with Breece Hall. Breece Hall has just been really, really inconsistent, so I don't want to short him having a great 32-point week against Cincinnati, but you do want to take that matchup with a grain of salt. Cincinnati is one of the worst defenses in the NFL. Most teams are going to be very productive against that defense, and I don't think Justin Fields is going to look the way that he did against Cincy every single week. So coming out of the bye, we're going to have to see more consistency in 2 matchups that are really, really rough: Cleveland and New England. I don't think realistically you're going to see 2 hyper-productive weeks from Breece Hall. Again, he can transcend situation any given week, but I'm just not going to bet on him being ultra consistent on down the stretch here, which is why we're going to keep him in the C tier. But he still is a very solid start every single week. Travis Etienne also kind of just showing what his floor is, and his carries aren't getting any better in terms of his weekly volume. So that's something we're going to want to keep an eye on, but he is still the bell cow there. Bashal Tutin hasn't really eaten into his workload like a lot of people thought he would this season. DeAndre Swift on the way up. If he continues this nice tear, you could honestly make an argument to move him up rankings and put him in the B tier as well. We're definitely well on our way to that, but this is, again, a stretch for Swift that we expected him to start to really pop off. He's got Cincy, the Giants, and Minnesota the next few weeks, and then kind of tougher down the stretch with Pittsburgh, Philly, Green Bay, and Cleveland. Green Bay twice, actually. So some tougher run defenses towards the end of the season, which is why we're going to be a little conservative with his ROS outlook. You might see a mixed bag with Swift And then Omari and Hampton will sit down here until he's back healthy, but we're not expecting him to be back until closer to the playoff time. So that's gonna knock him big time. Jaylen Warren will be in here. He's the most consistent, honestly, has the highest floor of anyone in this range, with maybe the exception of ETN, but Jaylen Warren has been really solid, and he actually any running back in this range, not even in this tier, but like any non-elite running back, Warren has one of the best rest of season schedules. Cincinnati, Chicago, Buffalo, Baltimore, Miami, in Detroit over the next like 6 weeks. He's got the Colts and the Chargers as well. I mean, those are a lot of really favorable run defenses in terms of like him being able to put up some nice production, and his receiving upside elevates his production as well.
In the D tier, we'll start with J.K. Dobbins, who a lot of people are going to be moving down their rankings after R.J. Harvey had 3 touchdowns on like 7 touches. Realistically, you're looking at the production there and the volume there for J.K. Dobbins that hasn't really changed, and so we're not going to dock him in our rankings just yet. Alvin Kamara continues to be kind of mid. That offense is taking a little bit of a shift now with Tyler Shuck being named the starting QB. We'll see if that has a positive impact on Kamara. I would hope it does, but I just realistically can't bring myself to think they're going to score any more touchdowns, which is a big problem with what his production profile has been so far this year. Worth noting, we have Alvin Kamara 4.5 spots higher than the experts, so we're still dragging our feet a little bit there, it looks like. Chase Brown, that's somebody that experts are higher on than us. With Brown, obviously he's had a couple good games, but I don't think I still don't think we have a large enough sample size of him performing at a high consistent level. Even though he had a 25-point game, I'm not going to move him up 4 spots because of that, and I feel like most people are doing that. And so the snap share was exactly the same. The carries were exactly the same. Of course, he just had 2 touchdowns in this game. He's not going to have 2 touchdowns every game. And so you got to be a little bit careful with Chase Brown and moving him too far up after 1-2 touchdown performance from him. Corey Kosky-Merritt really didn't do anything against the Chiefs. But again, that's a pretty common theme with running backs playing the Chiefs this season. We're not freaking out there. We'll keep him here. David Montgomery, obviously the Lions didn't play. And so, I still think Monty has more touchdown upside than a lot of these guys down here. And that's kind of why we have him here. And then Tyron Tracy moves way up. I have him at 23, Nathan has him at 30, so we're splitting the difference here a little bit, but it can be anywhere in this D tier, in my opinion, and I'm fine with it. With Tracy, I don't think it's an absolute given that he's going to be a top 20 running back option rest of the season from a production standpoint. I have him at 23, and I do think even with getting the attempts that he's going to get, there's still going to be limited upside compared to what Scadaboo had.
He was replaced for a reason.
And Devin Singletary is also going to be involved there still, even though it's going to be minimal. We're just going to have to wait and see how productive Tyron Tracy is. The fact of the matter is I just don't think he's as talented as Cam Scadaboo, and I don't think he's going to be as fantasy productive as Scadaboo. So I don't think you can just swap those 2 guys in and out.
F tier, we just have a bunch of committees here, honestly. Rico and Chuba, 50-50 swap. You tell me any given week who's going to be the number 1 guy there. Same with Kenneth Walker and Charbonnet, who's going to get the touchdowns. It's been Charbonnet of recent. Woody Marks is just very boom bust. Jordan Mason and Aaron Jones, they're back to their 50-50 split, where neither of them are really going to be ultra productive. They're going to be very dependent on touchdowns. Kamani Vidal is a short-term rental, right? Until Hampton comes back healthy, he's not going to be worth anything once playoff time comes around. Ramondre Stevenson is just... He's a top running back option in an offense that just doesn't really like their running backs to be the focal point there. And Ramondre is just... He's just not consistent enough as well. He's very touchdown or bust. I view him very similar to Woody Marks, honestly, in this range. Trey Benson is a guy that I think is capable of getting out of this tier once he's back healthy. Just want to be conservative with him, waiting to see when he's going to be designated to come off IR, hoping next week.
In the G tier, we'll start with R.J. Harvey. Again, not moving him way up our rankings until we see an increased workload consistently. Tony Pollard, kind of the same thing. I mean, with Pollard, Spears continues to get a lot of the work there, but I mean, even against Indianapolis, he had 6 points on 11 carries. He's just not efficient at all. Isaiah Pacheco, kind of the same thing. It looked like he tore his ACL, and then he went to the trainer's table, and they said, all right, you're good, and he jumped off. He's still the running back 37 on the year. I mean, you can't expect to start him every week and get any positive results. Rashad White's going to be moving down now that he's not going to be the starter there with Bucky Irving returning soon. He is somebody you can start every week and get 5 to 10 points probably, but not anything you're going to want to start on a consistent basis. Travion Henderson fumbled, I think, at the goal line in this last game. Here's the thing, though. It shouldn't matter because you don't get penalized for fumbles in that offense. And so...
That is true.
Who cares? He had 10 carries, which was the second most of the season. He had 5 points against Cleveland. It was a tough Cleveland defense and tough matchup, though. And then Tyjae Spears already mentioned in the same tier as Tony Pollard, and you just don't know which of those running backs on a bad offense you're going to get. Now, he did have 17 points against Indianapolis because he did have that touchdown, and he had 3 receptions for 23 yards as well. So he had the better game. I think he's probably...
A lot of garbage time points.
I think he's probably still, though, the if I had to choose one of them to roster, I'd probably choose Tajay at this point, just with the receiving upside. But yeah, a lot of it was garbage time, and so you got to keep that in mind as well. Context is important, and we're not going to move him way up after that. And then last year here, Kenny Gainwell, Jalen Warren continues to have the lion's share of that backfield, so I don't think Gainwell's a startable option at this point. Tootin hasn't really cut into Etienne's workload. Kareem Hunt has red zone upside every week, but you just, when he doesn't score touchdowns, he's getting you 0 points.
Pacheco is week to week, so he's got some.
So he might be upside. Somebody you have to consider short term. Nick Chubb, again, he's getting still consistent carries, but Woody Marks is the most productive guy there by far. Michael Carter was dropped but picked back up. We'll leave him in here. Joe Mixon, Tyler Algier, Dylan Sampson, Ollie Gordon again. I mean, that's not a ton to talk about down here. Let's go to wide receivers now. Let's start in the S tier. The guy that Nathan just traded for in the Flock League, Puka Nacua, is going to be up here at the top. Jamar Chase, my guy, is going to be here at number 2. We've got all these guys in the same tier. So take any of these guys as the wide receiver one rest of the season that you want. Nakua, Chase, Amon-Ra St. Brown, JSN, and CeeDee Lamb. I think every single one of these 5 guys, you can make an argument for them to be the rest of season wide receiver one in fantasy football. All of them have their good arguments and all of them have their drawbacks, right? So any way you want to arrange these guys is fine, but these are the receivers, if you have them, they are the premier wide receivers in fantasy football, and you're really happy with it. In the A tier, though, you've got Justin Jefferson and Rashee Rice and Drake London. And I'm pretty close. I'm pretty close to putting Rice in the S tier at this point. I mean, he's doing exactly what we thought he was going to. Nine receptions for 93 yards. I mean, he's incredible. Rashee Rice is actually incredible. And rest of the season, I would prefer him over Justin Jefferson. I would prefer him over Drake London. So I'm very close to putting him in the S tier. Justin Jefferson, the quarterback situation is going to get worse there. I don't know how you look at Justin Jefferson and think that he's going to take a big league rest of the season realistically. And so while he's still, you have to rank him just from a talent perspective alone above all the guys. The B tier actually gets fairly ugly when you're ranking these guys, and Justin Jefferson, you're just going to take over them. But multiple things can be true here. I think he's better than the rest of the B tier, but I also think that there's a significant drop off from the S tier to the. I mean, the more I even think about this, the more I would pretty clearly take Rice over him. So we'll figure that out. But London in the last spot here is also just hit or miss. He's just hit or miss, man. And the Falcons can be kind of hit or miss as well. And so it makes it a little bit confusing on how we're ranking Drake London, who's been the wide receiver 27. He had that 25, and he had the bye, and then 31 points. And then week 7 against San Francisco, he had 8 points, and then he didn't play in week 8 against Miami.
Why they don't target him like crazy every single week.
I don't either.
They did last year.
Now, he's had 8 or more targets in all but one of his games so far, and so that is good. He's got to stay healthy, though. He 23 minutes ago, Drake London ready to practice. So hopefully, I think he really is truly like an A-tier option. I would probably rank him above Jefferson at this point as well, if I'm being honest. But it gets a little bit messy, and this B tier is then kind of just the step down next year wide receivers we have ranked.
Yeah, Rome in a situation where DeAndre Swift has really come out and honestly started to take away from some of the production upside of everybody else in that offense. So that is something to keep an eye on. But I do think Rome still is going to be able to elevate his floor if he can continue to get the target volume that he has been getting. He's the number 1 there. Emeka and everyone else in that offense, honestly, with all the injuries that the Bucs have suffered from, has just kind of taken a step back. I think you've had 3 straight single-digit performances from Igbuka. So we were wondering if he would kind of fall back a little bit and fall back down to earth. And that was going to be with the assumption that Mike Evans and Godwin were going to be there. There hasn't been Mike Evans or Godwin there, and he still has not been very productive. Baker hasn't been either, but he's still the wide receiver 7 on the season. Heading out of the bye, New England, Buffalo, the Rams. That's a tough 3 matchups there, so we'll see what happens with Igbuka. But again, this is why he's going to be a tier below those guys in the A tier. Nico Collins, very boom-bust in an offense that's very boom-bust. I think it's very matchup dependent any given week. Are they going to be able to get pressure on Stroud or not? If they do, Nico's not going to have a good day. If they don't, then he's going to have a great day. Garrett Wilson, just in a terrible offense where he's going to continue to command target volume. And it's very clear how much he was missed when he was down with the injury. We would expect him to kind of pick back up right where he left off before he went down with that sprain. He should be totally fine. Cortland Sutton, has been boom-busty as well. These are kind of the boom-bust receivers in the B tier that have elite level upside, but they all deserve to be here. Cortland Sutton in probably the second best situation in this tier. So not really worried about Troy Franklin taking away from him long term.
All right, going to the C tier here. We'll start with Devontae Adams. Puka's back now, so it's going to limit his upside. He has mostly red zone upside, but it's elite red zone upside, and you have to acknowledge that. Ladd McConkey has kind of moved back up in our rankings. We're split on him by about 5 spots. I have him a little bit higher, but he's just from his target volume has just skyrocketed back up, and I don't think it's going to change rest of the season. Yeah. Yep. Jalen Waddle, we both have him at about 17, and with Waddle, obviously Tua's not going to throw for 4 touchdowns every week, but he did have 20 points against Atlanta after that tough game against Cleveland and basically a windstorm. But when you're considering the last couple games without Tyreek Hill, the last 4 games, he had the one against Cleveland, which was again in a windstorm, and then 20, 15, and 23 points. He's a wide receiver 13 on the year, and I think this ranking is more than warranted at this point. George Pickens, you've continued to see more or less what George Pickens is going to be with CeeDee Lamb in that offense. He had 14 points and 12 points in the last 2 weeks with CeeDee Lamb. Still had decent target volume, but no touchdowns, and his upside's, 12 to 14 points without a touchdown. Now, obviously, 18-point upside with a touchdown is great. He's still the wide receiver 3 on the year, but he has 1 week until his bye, and so good matchup against Arizona. George Pickens is still a pretty solid option for the rest of the year. Zay Flowers getting Lamar Jackson back. We're going to keep him here, hoping that really does help him. He's still been kind of steady, just not anything over the top crazy. Michael Pittman, we both moved up quite a bit. I have him at 15. I have Michael Pittman at 15. He's the wide receiver 6 in the year. I get that he hasn't had his bye week, but I mean, when we're talking about Michael Pittman's, he is the top option in one of the top offenses in the league. I don't know what else we want to see from him. So I have him ranked very aggressively. We have him anywhere in the C tier, but I have him at the top of this tier. AJ Brown, kind of the same thing in the sense that you could put him anywhere in this tier, but it's just not great right now. He obviously he didn't play against the Giants, and now they're on a bye week, but he's the wide receiver 32 in the year. I think, in my opinion, DeVonta Smith's outperforming him right now. And so from an NFL perspective, and we're going to have DeVonta Smith in this tier as well, by the way. So range these guys however you want. I think DeVonta Smith's outproducing him when you're looking at A.J. Brown, the wide receiver 32 so far on the year. And when you're looking at DeVonta Smith, the wide receiver 10 on the year. He's actually been really good. And he's only scored 2 touchdowns on the year as well. And so you can arrange those guys any way you want. And then Chris Olave absolutely deserves to be anywhere in this tier you want him. He is the wide receiver 9 in the year, still had 14 points against Tampa Bay in week 8. He's just been really steady, and his targets have been great. And he's still, even without a touchdown in week 8, had 14 points. And so we like to see that. And so all of these guys, again, you feel pretty solid with these guys. I honestly feel just as good about most of these guys in the C tier as I do with the guys in the B tier at this point, a lot of them. And so it's kind of the sweet spot for some good wide receiver value guys producing at a wide receiver 2 or higher level that you're getting a little bit cheaper at the moment.
Debo at the top of the D tier continues to move down our rankings because he's been banged up and it shows, and that situation just isn't getting any better with Jaden Daniels missing who knows how much time with the hamstring injury. Ted McMillan, also a guy that just continues to fall. He's just... I don't know if it's all going to come together in terms of consistent production for Tet. He had a 16-pointer against Buffalo, good for him, in a garbage time game, 6 points the week before. We're just not seeing the crazy upside yet for him, and you're seeing kind of the fluctuation in target volume any given week. Then you have Green Bay next week, which is tough, then an easier one against New Orleans, and Atlanta and San Fran's kind of iffy, and then the Rams, and then the bye. I don't know what to do with Ted McMillan, honestly, at this point. I don't think either of us do. Low-end wide receiver 2, at the moment, borderline high-end wide receiver 3. It's a tough situation to navigate. BTJ, when's he going to come on? Now he's got the shoulder injury. Is he going to be ready to go after the bye week? We'll see. But he's just not been consistent. And Travis Hunter is now on the up. DK Metcalf has been DK Metcalf. I don't know at this point what else to say about DK other than this situation has not shown or proven to be any better than his situation with JSN in Seattle. And even though he's the number 1 guy there and has big play upside and is probably going to have a great day against the Colts, because every wide receiver has a good day against the Colts, you're just not going to see it consistently every single week, but he's a good flex option. T. Higgins came back down to earth in terms of his target volume last week, only had 2 targets on the day, salvaged his day with 1 40-yard touchdown. That was his only reception on the day. Joe Flacco is now banged up as well, so we'll see how long that lasts. Xavier Worthy, he is touchdown. I wouldn't say touchdown or bust, but even when he gets a touchdown, it's just really hard to see Worthy any given week eclipse 20 points because all that target volume is going to Rashee and Travis Kelce, and then it's being evenly distributed among every other wide receiver in that offense. And again, big play upside, any given touch for Xavier Worthy, but he's probably going to get you 8 to 12 points with no touchdown, 18 points with a touchdown. Marvin Harrison, that situation is so disgusting. I can't even talk about it. And then Jordan Addison, with McCarthy coming back, we're both being pretty conservative with his rank. We got him as a mid-wide receiver 3 rest of the season, which some people might disagree with given his start off of the suspension. I don't think you guys understand how much of a step down it is from the target volume alone that is provided from any quarterback not named JJ McCarthy. From what we saw, I mean, there is a direct correlation between Jefferson's target volume with McCarthy and with Carson Wentz. And unless McCarthy just turns into like a god at the quarterback position after this ankle sprain, I don't think we're going to see that. Again, we've seen KOC work wonders before. But I don't think we're betting on it. And again, we're not going to be like super anti-Jefferson rest of the season, but I think we're going to be a little more conservative with Addison. I think he's going to be more boom bust.
Yeah, he's going to be pretty hit or miss in my opinion. F tier, we'll start with Quentin Johnson, who's been, pretty consistently just kind of sliding down. It kind of sucks. Like, he played 52% of snaps in week 8 versus the Minnesota Vikings, which is oddly low for him. Only on the field for 38 of 73 offensive snaps. Trey Harris actually played 43% of snaps in this game. That's really interesting to me. With as good as he looked, they actually decreased his snap share.
Yeah.
That's actually wild.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think you have to dock him a little bit for this. He's still the wide receiver 22 in the year, but let's all remember that I turned QJ into Rashee Rice this year, and so that is one of my finest fantasy football works that I ever have accomplished. Stephon Diggs, I think, could be higher. I think Stephon Diggs could be higher. I think the experts are too low on Stephon Diggs, in my opinion. That's a good offense and a good quarterback, and Stephon Diggs, really, when you're looking at his last 5 games, 16, 24, 5, 13, and 10 points. Obviously, nothing groundbreaking, but he hasn't scored any touchdowns until this last game. This was his first touchdown of the year. Now, I get that the volume's a little bit limited there. He's still the wide receiver 26 in the year. Terry McLaurin came back and had a touchdown. He had 14 points in that game, full point PPR leagues. He's also hurting his quad again, evidently. I haven't heard anything on Terry as of today, but it's not great that it's lingering. He says it's all right. I don't care. It still makes me scared. Jameson Williams. A lot of people are like completely done with Jameson Williams. We had JMO as a buy. Look, Jameson Williams is going to have plenty of good games this year. The rest of this year. He is a guy that will absolutely turn it around in the later half of the season. They're going to get him more involved. They didn't pay him for nothing. So even though he started slow, I don't think he's dead in the water. Ricky Pearsall, nothing much to talk about there. And then Khalil Shakir had a touchdown at the end of that game to kind of put that game away. And he continues to be just consistent. 26, 11, 17, 14, 2 and 12 points. He's the wide receiver 33. He's just a guy you can flex, and that's what he is. But all of these guys, we're getting into the shaky options now, and the G tier guys you may or may not want to start.
Yeah, the G tier are the last guys that you're probably comfortable flexing any given week, but outside of that, with the H and the I tier, it's going to get ugly. Travis Hunter on the up. We'll see if he can maintain this target volume or even like 75% of that target volume that you saw in that London game. Wan'Dale Robinson just continues to show that he's a nice, reliable option in terms of his target volume. He can take one to the house any given week and have a 15-point game, which is great as a flex option. Chris Godwin, banged up right now. We'll see when he comes back healthy, but there's no Mike Evans, so he does have more upside than I think we were optimistic about previously, which was not optimistic at all. Josh Downs, he's boom bust every single week as well, kind of touchdown or bust. He's the number 2 to Michael Pittman at this point. And honestly, Alec Pierce is getting more opportunities on the field. DJ Moore salvaged his day last week with like a 40-yard reception in garbage time at the end of the game. If it were not for that, he would have had his 6th or 7th single-digit game of the year. So not really feeling great about him rest of the season. Then the guys in the H and the I tier, I'll just close it out here. Literally just going to give you guys these names because you don't want to start them. Myers, Golden, Kupp, Jennings, Dobbs, who's had a couple of good games this season, Ridley coming off the hamstring. Dobbs and Ridley, if you want to flex him this week, if you have to, then I guess it's fine. Keon Coleman at the top of the I tier with Ayuk. Who knows when he's going to come back? They haven't even opened his 21-day practice window yet. Booty, Shaheed, Trey Tucker, a couple of deep threats here with touchdown upside. Troy Franklin, who had one of his 2 great games this season, and then Jerry Jeudy, Kendrick Bourne, and Alec.
There you go. All right, let's go to tight ends now. Starting in the S tier, just really by himself right now, in my opinion, is Trey McBride. McBride continues to produce at a very high level. And, obviously you had to buy this last week, but before that, he's had 29-21 in his last 2 games. He had the game at 9. He's in double digits. And look at his target volume, man. It's just ridiculous.
His floor is just higher than any other tight end.
Yeah, it is. And
right
so
now,
really you're not getting that floor from any other tight end, I think, right now in fantasy football. And so even considering the start of the A tier here, Tyler Warren. Tyler Warren had 9 points in his last game. He's got a little bit of a lower floor floor. He had touchdowns in his 3 previous games. But I do think, I would probably still take McBride over Warren every time. But then the rest of this A tier here, Kittle, Ferguson, Kraft, and Bowers. Bowers obviously returning to practice this week, which is great news for him. Hopefully he comes back and returns to form. Tucker Kraft had another huge game. Again, do keep in mind, Kraft is going to be more boom or bust. Kraft is going to have games of 5 points and then games of 30 points. Now, the last 4 games, you've seen a little bit more consistency here. 10, 12, 16, and 33. But really, you just have to see the targets stay up there. He's the tight end 2 rest of the season, and I think, or tight end 2 overall so far this season. And I think he could be as high as tight end 2 in our rankings, which is why he's in this A tier as well. And then Jake Ferguson, he had a dud game in his last game, which kind of sucked. But at the same time, he's still the tight end 1 on the season. So I don't expect that to continue. He only had 1 target in that game against Denver. He's got a good matchup against Arizona. They have a bye, and I expect him to still be a top 6 tight end option rest of the season.
Yeah, then B tier is going to start with Laporta. He's boom bust as well, very similar to Kraft, but just at a lesser scale. Oronde Gadsden has been the biggest riser here. We got him at tight end 8. I don't think that's aggressive given the landscape of tight ends right now in fantasy football. He has been one of the most consistent high target volume tight ends in the NFL over the last month. And if that continues, then he will find himself in the A tier solidly. Travis Kelce had a great day against Washington. Again, it was against Washington. So I don't think we're going to be super aggressive with his ranking. I think it belongs here in the B tier. Dallas Goedert, touchdown or bust. When he has touchdowns, though, I feel like he gets 2 or 3 when he gets his touchdown games. So nice high upside there, just a low floor. It's going to be very schematically dependent. And then the C and the D tier streamable options. Kincaid, Harold Fannin, who has big games every once in a while and a bad offense. Kyle Pitts, whose target volume has been higher than we've seen since his rookie season, honestly, this year. Hunter Henry, David Njoku also belong here, and then the D tier with Hawkinson, Ertz, Andrews, Juwan Johnson, Mason Taylor, and Ingram. None of them command enough target volume for them to be consistently productive. They do need a touchdown to be ultra productive.
And then last but certainly not least, let's go to QBs now. S tier, 3 guys here: Allen, Mahomes, Jackson. Mahomes still producing as the top quarterback in fantasy football right now, but Allen and Jackson, you have to acknowledge the rushing upside there, and so they're going to be the top 3 options. A tier is going to be Drake May and Jalen Hurts. May continues to ball out. Hurts obviously has the upside. Enjoy this last year of the tush push with Jalen Hurts is what I'll say. That B tier is all these productive guys that you feel good about every week starters: Dak Prescott, Jaden Daniels, Baker Mayfield, and I would probably cut the B tier there and move the C tier up, and then do Justin Herbert, Daniel Jones, Caleb Williams, Bo Nix, Jackson.
Herbert and Jones have been more consistent than Baker at this point.
They have. Baker has been.
I don't know.
Okay, so then let's start the C tier at Baker Mayfield. So it's Baker, Herbert, Jones, Caleb Williams, Bo Nix, and Jackson Dart. Those are your you're probably starting them, but they're a little bit matchup dependent. The matchup dependent guys or bye week fillers here are going to be Jordan Love, Sam Darnold, Jared Goff, Matt Stafford, Kyler Murray, Brock Purdy, and then of course the F tier guys. And so most of these guys, again, you're only really focused most leagues through the C tier at this point. And so hopefully this helps. Hopefully you enjoy this video. If you do, again, drop a like. Make sure you're subscribed. Again, if you want to use our free tools, we've got the link pinned down in the comments for you. Just create a free account with code domain. You have access to all of our tools. We appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you here soon.